I'm Natalie. I'm 42 years old, and right now, I'm sitting in my living room, a cup of tea warming my hands, looking out at the quiet street. It's peaceful here, finally. But for most of my life, my world felt loud and chaotic, ruled by the expectations and demands of others. Specifically, my family. Maybe you know what that feels like you're constantly performing a role, saying the right things, doing the right things, just to keep the peace or earn a crumb of approval. I was the reliable one, the quiet one, the one who didn't make a fuss, the one who cleaned up, literally and figuratively. I thought that's what families did. They leaned on each other. I just didn't realize, for the longest time, that in my family, all the leaning was happening in one direction, towards me. It's strange how one moment can shatter everything you thought you knew. It wasn't a sudden explosion, it was more like a carefully constructed wall, built over decades, finally crumbling under the weight of a single, seemingly small stone. A stone thrown intentionally by someone I loved more than almost anyone, my sister. The moment I'm talking about, the one that changed everything, happened just before Christmas a couple of years ago. It was the kind of betrayal that makes you question your entire history, your entire identity. It cut so deep because it came from the people I expected to be my safe harbor. Instead, they were the storm. This is my story of discovering that being family isn't always enough, that sometimes the people closest to you can hurt you the most, and that finding your own voice is the only way to truly save yourself. Let me know where you're watching from, and if any part of this resonates with you, it helps to know we're not alone in these kinds of experiences. Growing up, our family dynamic was, looking back, a finely tuned machine designed to orbit around my sister, Sarah. She was the younger one, the delicate one, the one who needed things. Or, perhaps more accurately, the one who demanded things, and who mother always ensured received them. I was just Natalie, the older sister, the responsible one, the one who could manage on her own. This wasn't explicitly stated, of course. It was woven into the fabric of our daily lives, in the way mother's gaze lingered longer on Sarah. In the automatic assumption that I would understand or sacrifice, or simply take care of myself while Sarah was catered to. Sarah was always lauded for her creativity, her free spirit, which often translated into a complete lack of responsibility. She'd flit from one interest to the next, never quite landing, always needing a little help to get by. Mother saw this as charming. I saw it as, well, I didn't allow myself to see it clearly for a long time. I just saw it as Sarah needing help, and me being the one who provided it, because that's what families do, right? I remember when Sarah wanted to move into her first apartment after college. She had some grand, undefined plan involving artisanal crafts and online presence. It sounded vague and expensive. She didn't have a steady job. Mother immediately offered to cover her rent for the first 6 months. When I mentioned, hesitantly, that I was struggling to save for a down payment on a small condo, Mother simply said, "Well, Natalie, you've always been so good with money. Sarah needs a little more guidance." It wasn't guidance Sarah needed, it was a free ride. And Mother was happy to provide it, using her own money, yes, but the expectation that I would be self-sufficient while Sarah was subsidized was clear. Over the years, this pattern solidified. Sarah would call, usually in a state of minor crisis. Her car broke down, she needed help moving again, she was short on rent, even after the initial 6 months. She needed someone to watch her cat for a week while she went on an impulsive trip. And who did she call? Not Mother, who would offer financial aid but rarely practical help. She called me. And I always said yes. I'd drive across town to pick her up, spend my Saturday lugging her boxes, lend her money I could barely spare, rearrange my schedule to feed a finicky cat. Sarah's requests were endless, presented with a breezy assumption that I had nothing better to do. And I, ever the accommodating sister, reinforced that assumption by always being available. Mother, meanwhile, would coo over Sarah's latest endeavor, often completely impractical, while barely asking about my life, my job, my concerns. If I mentioned being tired or stressed from helping Sarah, Mother would sigh and say, "Oh, Natalie, she just needs you right now. She's going through a phase." Sarah was perpetually going through a phase that required my unpaid labor and emotional support. The holidays were a particular pain point, although I never let myself fully acknowledge it. For years, I hosted Christmas dinner at my condo, despite it being the smallest space. Mother claimed her house was too cluttered, and Sarah's apartment was too small and not suitable for entertaining. So, I did it. Every year. I cleaned, I shopped, I cooked, for 3 days straight, I decorated, I set the table perfectly. Mother would arrive with a store-bought pie, Sarah with a bottle of cheap wine, usually late. They would sit in my living room while I bustled in the kitchen, preparing the elaborate meal they both expected. They would compliment the food, perhaps, but never offer to help with the monumental cleanup. I remember one year, after hours in the kitchen, my feet aching, looking into the dining room to see Mother and Sarah laughing, playing a card game, completely oblivious to the mountain of dishes awaiting me. I felt a sharp pang, a flicker of resentment, but I just smiled when they looked over and went back to scrubbing pots. This was just how it was. I was the doer, they were the enjoyers. My friend Emily tried gently to open my eyes. "Nat?" she said one afternoon, watching me pack up a box of old clothes Sarah had borrowed, and finally decided she didn't want any more, leaving me to deal with them. "Do you ever feel like you're their personal assistant?" I laughed, a little too quickly. "Oh, you know Sarah. She's just a bit unorganized." "Unorganized or just used to you doing everything for her?" Emily's gaze was kind, but direct. I shrugged, feeling defensive. "She's my sister," as if that explained and excused everything. "Being family doesn't mean being a doormat," Emily said softly. "Your time, your energy, your money, they have value, Nat. You deserve reciprocity." Reciprocity. The word felt foreign in the context of my family. It was a one-way street, paved with my efforts and their expectations. But I couldn't confront it. The thought of upsetting Mother, of causing conflict with Sarah, was unbearable. I had spent my whole life being the easy one, the compliant one. Rocking the boat felt terrifying. What if the boat capsized? What if I was left alone in the water? So, I continued lending money that wasn't always repaid, helping with moves, hosting holidays, listening to Sarah's endless dramas while my own struggles went largely unheard or were quickly dismissed. My job was demanding. My own relationships often suffered because I was prioritizing family demands, but I kept telling myself that this was love. This was what it meant to be a good daughter, a good sister. The financial exploitation was insidious. It wasn't always large sums. It was paying for dinner when Sarah conveniently forgot her wallet. It was buying groceries because Sarah was totally broke this week. It was contributing more than my share to Mother's birthday gift because Sarah could only spare a little right now. It added up. It meant I worked harder, saved less, put off my own dreams. But asking for the money back felt awkward. Like I was being petty, and they never offered. The emotional exploitation was perhaps worse. I was the confidant, the shoulder to cry on, the mediator. I listened to Sarah's complaints about her job, her friends, her life, for hours on end. But when I needed to talk about my own stresses, my voice seemed to fade. Mother would interject, bringing the conversation back to Sarah. Sarah would zone out, fiddling with her phone. My problems were small, manageable, because I was Natalie, the one who could manage. I became a master of suppressing my own needs and feelings. I learned to wear a mask of pleasant capability. Inside, though, a quiet anger was simmering. It was a tiny ember at first, barely noticeable, but fueled by each new instance of being taken for granted, of my efforts being invisible, of my sister's desires eclipsing my own. This simmering resentment started manifesting in physical ways. I was constantly tired. I had headaches. My jaw was perpetually clenched. I couldn't relax. My friend Emily noticed. You look exhausted, Nat, she'd say. Are you getting enough sleep? I wasn't. I was lying awake, replaying conversations, feeling that familiar pang of injustice, then immediately smothering it with guilt for even feeling it. Their family. They didn't mean to. It's not a big deal. I was a pro at minimizing my own pain. The year leading up to that Christmas was particularly draining. Sarah had gone through another phase, involving quitting her job abruptly and deciding she wanted to become a certified yoga instructor. This required expensive training. Mother, of course, footed a large part of the bill. But Sarah still needed support. This meant more calls, more errands, more emotional hand-holding. I was working overtime at my job to save for some much-needed home repairs, but I still said yes whenever Sarah called. I was also, predictably, planning to host Christmas again. Mother had made a vague comment in early November about how lovely my place was for the holidays. That was the signal. I started mentally preparing. The menu, the guest list, just us three, always, the decorations. I found myself dreading it more than looking forward to it. The effort felt monumental. The appreciation felt minimal. But it was tradition. It was what we did. It was my role. I had even bought a new set of festive dishes, wanting to make it feel extra special, extra beautiful. I remember unwrapping them, feeling a small spark of creative joy, a hope that maybe this year things would feel different. Maybe this year my effort would be truly seen, truly appreciated. Maybe this year I wouldn't feel like the hired help. That hope was fragile, a tiny bird with delicate wings, easily crushed. About 2 weeks before Christmas, I called Mother to firm up the details. I had a few questions about dietary preferences. Sarah was on a new, very specific health kick, and arrival times. I was in the middle of the grocery store, navigating the crowded aisles, trying to find a specific kind of cranberry sauce. Hi, Mum, I said, balancing my phone against my shoulder while pushing the cart. Just calling about Christmas dinner. Do you think Sarah will eat the pecan pie, or should I make something else? There was a slight pause on the other end, a pause that, in retrospect, felt heavy with something unspoken. Oh, Natalie, Mother said, her voice a little too bright, a little too quick. About Christmas dinner. My hand froze on a jar of cranberry sauce. Yes? Well, darling, Sarah and I were talking, and she feels. Mother trailed off, then picked up speed. She feels like this year, maybe we should just do a small, quiet Christmas. Just us. My mind scrambled. Just us? But that's what we always do. Just you, me, and Sarah. Another pause. A shorter one this time, but just as potent. Then, the words that landed like a physical blow. No, darling, Mother said, her tone gentle but firm. Just Sarah and I, at her place, a quiet one. You know, she's been under so much stress with her yoga training and all. She just needs a very low-key day, without, you know, without me. The phrase hung in the air, heavy, suffocating. Without you, it wasn't about stress. Sarah's low-key often involved making everyone else cater to her needs while she relaxed. It was about exclusion. It was about being deliberately left out. I leaned against the grocery cart, the fluorescent lights of the aisle suddenly feeling too bright, the cheerful Christmas music playing overhead grating on my nerves. My heart hammered against my ribs. Without? Me? I repeated, the words barely a whisper. I felt my face grow hot, then cold. Yes, darling, Mother continued, oblivious or perhaps deliberately ignoring the tremor in my voice. Just us. It's Sarah's idea. She wants a really intimate Christmas this year. Just the two of us. You understand, don't you? It's just a change for this year. A change for this year, as if it were a minor inconvenience, like changing the time of brunch, not a fundamental rejection. Not an outright declaration that I was not part of the core unit, that I was expendable, that after decades of being the one who made Christmas happen, I was simply uninvited. I thought of the new dishes I'd bought, the menu I'd planned, The sheer amount of effort I had poured into creating their perfect Christmas, year after year. And now, when Sarah wanted a quiet one, a just us one, I was the one who was cut. Not the relative who lived further away, not a distant cousin. Me. The one who had always been there. So, I said, my voice trembling now, unable to hide it. I'm not invited to Christmas dinner? Mother sighed, a sound of slight impatience. Oh, don't be dramatic, Natalie. It's just this one year. Sarah just needs this. She needs a quiet day with her mother. Her mother. As if she wasn't my mother too. As if Sarah had some exclusive claim on her, on their bond, on their shared experience, from which I was now definitively excluded. The dam I had built inside myself, the one holding back years of minimized pain and suppressed resentment, began to crack. Dramatic? I asked, my voice rising slightly despite my effort to control it. I host Christmas every single year. I do all the work. I buy everything, I cook everything, I clean everything. And when you decide you want a quiet one, I'm the one who isn't included? Mother's tone hardened. That's not fair, Natalie. Sarah isn't up to a big production this year. She needs nurturing. You're strong. You can handle it. You're strong. You can handle it. The familiar refrain. It wasn't a compliment. It was justification for neglect. It meant I didn't need care, attention, or inclusion in the same way Sarah did. It meant my strength was a tool for their convenience, not a quality to be admired. So my strength means I get to be alone on Christmas? I asked, the words thick with unshed tears. You won't be alone. Mother said, her voice back to that placating, dismissive tone. You have friends, don't you? And we'll see you after Christmas, of course. Maybe for dinner the week after. See me after Christmas. After the intimate, special day Sarah wanted to share only with Mother. I was being relegated to a post-holiday footnote. I couldn't stand in that aisle anymore. I mumbled something incoherent about having to go, about being busy, and hung up. I abandoned the half-filled cart right there in the aisle and walked out of the grocery store, leaving the festive music and the gleaming displays behind. Outside, the cold air hit my face, but I barely felt it. I walked to my car on autopilot, got in, and just sat there. The parking lot was full of people rushing, packages in hand, preparing for their own family Christmases. My world, the one I thought I belonged to, had just shrunk to exclude me. Tears came then, hot and fast, blurring my vision. It wasn't just about this one Christmas dinner. It was about every single time I had been overlooked, every time my needs had been secondary, every time I had given and received so little in return. It was the culmination of a lifetime of subtle and not so subtle betrayals. Being told I wasn't wanted, not because I had done something wrong, but simply because my presence was deemed inconvenient or unnecessary for Sarah's desired vibe, was devastating. It felt like a definitive statement about my place in their lives. I didn't truly have one, not in the way they had a place in each other's. Sarah wanted just us, and us didn't include me. The next few days were a blur of pain and confusion. I wanted to call Mother back, to beg her to reconsider, to demand an explanation from Sarah, but I knew it would be useless. Mother would stand by Sarah, always, and Sarah would likely act bewildered by my reaction, accusing me of making a big deal out of nothing, of ruining her quiet Christmas. I felt like a child again, the one who wasn't picked for the team, standing on the sidelines while everyone else ran onto the field. Except this was my family, the only team I had ever truly wanted to be on. I called Emily. I choked out the story through sobs, the raw humiliation and pain pouring out of me. Emily listened patiently, quietly, her steady presence a lifeline. "Oh, Nat," she said when I finally ran out of breath. That's awful. I am so sorry." Her simple validation meant the world. It wasn't dismissed, it wasn't minimized. She saw the hurt for what it was. It feels like my whole life, I've been trying to earn my place," I whispered. "And now they've just." shown me I don't have one. Not a real one. You do have a place, Nat, Emily said firmly. It just might not be the one you thought you had with them. And that's okay. It hurts like hell right now, but it's okay. We talked for a long time. Emily didn't tell me what to do, but she helped me see the pattern clearly. She reminded me of the times I had canceled plans to help Sarah, the money I'd lent, the emotional energy I'd expended. She helped me connect the dots, showing me that this wasn't an isolated incident, but the inevitable outcome of a system where my value was solely based on my usefulness and compliance. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, the silence of my apartment amplifying the silence from my family. No follow-up call. No text from Sarah expressing even a perfunctory apology or explanation. Just silence. It was as if they had made their decision and expected me to quietly accept it. And for a moment, the ingrained pattern of my behavior kicked in. I thought about sending a text. Hey guys, hope you have a lovely quiet Christmas. Sending love. To show I wasn't upset, that I was the strong one, the understanding one. But my finger hovered over the keyboard. What was the point? To maintain the illusion? To protect them from the consequences of their actions? I had spent my whole life doing that. Something shifted inside me. A tiny, fierce spark of defiance. Number. Not this time. I wasn't going to make it easy for them. I wasn't going to pretend it didn't hurt. I wasn't going to play the role of the understanding, self-sacrificing sister anymore. The script had been thrown out. They had rewritten it without me, and now it was my turn to write my own part. The days leading up to Christmas were difficult. The city was buzzing with festive energy, reminders everywhere of family gatherings and togetherness. Each carol, each twinkling light display, felt like a deliberate jab. I avoided social media, knowing pictures of Sarah and Mother having their intimate Christmas would be like salt in the wound. I had planned to spend Christmas Eve and Christmas Day alone. I stocked up on comfort food, rented some movies, and braced myself for the quiet. It felt like a punishment, like I had been exiled. On Christmas Eve, Emily called. What are you doing tomorrow, Nat? Nothing, I admitted. Just being here. Well, you're not spending Christmas alone, she said, her voice warm and non-negotiable. You're coming to my place. My parents are here, my brother and his family. It'll be chaotic, but there's always room for one more. Consider it settled. Tears welled up again, but these were different. These were tears of gratitude. Someone wanted me, someone had room for me, someone saw me, and didn't want me to be alone. Emily, I don't want to intrude, I stammered, the old habits of minimizing myself kicking in. You are never an intrusion, Nat, she said firmly. Especially not tomorrow. We'll expect you around noon. Don't bring anything, just bring yourself. I accepted. And for the first time in weeks, I felt a tiny flicker of something other than pain. Anticipation. Walking into Emily's chaotic, warm, noisy house the next day felt like stepping into another dimension. There were people everywhere, laughing, talking, kids running around, the smell of roasting turkey and spices filling the air. Emily's parents greeted me with genuine warmth, like I was an old friend, part of the extended family. Her brother made a terrible joke about my arrival time and immediately offered me a drink. Throughout the day, I wasn't asked to help in the kitchen, although I offered. I wasn't tasked with corralling the children. I was simply invited to be. To sit, to talk, to laugh, to eat. To exist in the space without having to perform a service, it was profoundly healing. Emily's mother, a kind woman with laugh lines around her eyes, sat next to me at the dinner table. Emily has told us so much about you, Natalie, she said with a smile. It's wonderful to finally meet you. I talked about my job, my interests, things I rarely got to talk about with my own family. They listened. They asked questions. They seemed genuinely interested. It was such a stark contrast to the years of conversations orbiting solely around Sarah, with me chiming in only when needed for practical purposes. Later that evening, driving home under a sky full of stars, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't felt in a long time. The pain of the exclusion hadn't vanished entirely, but it was overlaid with a new feeling, the warmth of genuine connection and inclusion. Emily and her family had shown me what healthy family connection could look like: reciprocal, warm, inclusive. Being excluded from my family's Christmas was the catalyst, the shockwave I needed to finally confront the dysfunctional dynamic I had been living in. It was the ultimate, undeniable proof that I was not valued in the way I deserved to be, not by them. In the weeks and months that followed, I began the difficult process of setting boundaries. It wasn't easy. The ingrained habits of a lifetime are hard to break. Mother called a few days after Christmas, acting as if nothing unusual had happened. "We had such a lovely, quiet day," she chirped. Sarah was so relaxed, it was just what she needed. There was no apology, no acknowledgement of my feelings, no mention of how my Christmas had been. It was all about Sarah. Still, "I'm glad you both had a good time," I said, keeping my voice even. I didn't add, "I spent it with people who actually wanted me there." Mother then segued into complaining about how tired she was after hosting, even though Sarah had hosted. This was typical. Mother often exaggerated her own burdens to justify her lack of availability or to garner sympathy. She mentioned that Sarah was thinking of getting a new car and needed help with the down payment and maybe finding a reliable used model. This was the opening. This was where I usually stepped in. "Oh, that's a big purchase," I said slowly. "Yes, well, you're so good with cars, Natalie," Mother said immediately, the expectation dripping from her voice. "Could you maybe go look at a few with her this weekend? She doesn't know anything about engines, bless her heart." My stomach clenched. This was the test. This was the first real opportunity to say no, to refuse to be the reliable, helpful, always available Natalie they took for granted. I took a deep breath. "I'm sorry, Mother, I can't." Silence on the other end. Absolute, stunned silence. "You can't?" Mother finally sputtered, disbelief evident. "No," I said, my voice gaining strength. "I have plans this weekend, and frankly, I don't think it's my responsibility to help Sarah buy a car. She's an adult. She needs to figure these things out for herself." The silence returned, heavier this time. Then, the shift to indignation. "Natalie, how can you say that? She's your sister. She needs your help. What kind of sister are you?" Mother's voice was rising. "I'm a sister who has spent years putting Sarah's needs ahead of her own," I said, the words coming faster now, years of suppressed truth finally breaking free. "A sister who hosted Christmas dinner every year, did all the work, and was told I wasn't welcome the one year Sarah wanted a quiet Christmas. A sister who lends money and time and energy that is never reciprocated or even truly appreciated. This is what kind of sister I am, Mother, and I'm tired." Mother launched into a tirade. I was being selfish. I was overreacting about Christmas. Sarah hadn't meant it like that. I was hurting Mother by speaking this way. I was making things difficult. It was the familiar symphony of guilt-tripping, gaslighting, and deflection. But this time, it didn't work. The pain of being excluded from Christmas had been too profound. It had severed the cords that bound me to their expectations. I listened for a few minutes, my heart pounding, but I didn't engage with her arguments. "Mother," I interrupted, my voice calm but firm. My feelings about Christmas dinner were hurt, deeply. And it wasn't just about the dinner, it was about feeling overlooked and unvalued. I need to take some space. I'm not going to help Sarah with the car. And I need some time to figure out what a healthy relationship with both of you looks like, because this isn't it." She continued to argue, to plead, to guilt, but I held my ground. I ended the call, my hand shaking, but my resolve hardening. Setting boundaries with Sarah was equally difficult. She initially reacted with bewildered innocence. "What? You're mad about Christmas? It was just Mother and me, like, a chill day. You would have been bored." "Bored?" I echoed, a mirthless laugh escaping me. "I host the entire elaborate production every year, but I would have been bored at your chill day? That doesn't even make sense, Sarah. It's not about being bored. It's about being excluded from what you called just us. It feels like you don't see me as part of us when it counts. Her face shifted then, the mask of innocence slipping. A flash of annoyance crossed her features. God, Natalie, always so sensitive. It's not a big deal. Stop making it a drama. This was her classic move. Minimize my feelings, accuse me of being dramatic. For years, this would shut me down. Not anymore. It is a big deal to me, Sarah, I said, looking her directly in the eye. And my feelings matter. I'm not going to pretend that didn't hurt. And I'm not going to keep being the one who does everything for you while you treat me as an afterthought. She scoffed. Do everything? What are you even talking about? The gaslighting was so blatant, it was almost comical. Almost. The sting was still there. I'm talking about the money I've lent you that you never repaid, I said, listing things calmly. The hours I've spent helping you move. The times I've dropped everything to bail you out. The holidays I've hosted. It's been a pattern, Sarah. And I'm done with it. Sarah's face turned cold. Fine, she snapped. If you're going to be like this, I don't need your help anyway. And that was it. The conversation ended, not with reconciliation, but with a chilling finality. The period that followed was one of low contact, bordering on no contact. Mother would text occasionally, usually with some implied guilt trip. Thinking of you. Hope you're not too lonely. Or a passive-aggressive comment. Sarah is doing so well with her new car, thanks to someone else's help. She couldn't have done it without them. I responded politely but distantly, keeping interactions brief and emotionally neutral. Sarah made no attempt to contact me. It confirmed what I suspected. Our relationship was based on what I could do for her, not on genuine connection. When I stopped providing the service, the connection evaporated. It was painful. There were days I felt overwhelmed by sadness, grieving the loss of the family I had wished for, mourning the relationship with a sister who didn't exist outside of my idealized version. The silence from them was deafening at times. It felt like a void where a core part of my identity used to be. But in that void, something new began to grow. With the energy I had previously poured into managing their emotions and solving their problems, I started investing in myself. I joined a book club. I took a painting class. I focused on my friendships, nurturing those reciprocal relationships that actually fed my soul. I started therapy, processing the decades of emotional baggage. Therapy was transformative. My therapist helped me understand the family system I was in, the enmeshment, the favoritism, the covert contracts of my role as the responsible caretaker. She validated my feelings, showing me that my pain was real and justified, not dramatic. She helped me see that my worth was inherent, not tied to my ability to please or serve others. Slowly, painstakingly, I began to heal. The anger subsided, replaced by a quiet understanding and a fierce protectiveness of my newfound peace. I realized that while I couldn't change my family, I could change my relationship with them, and sometimes that meant creating distance. As the next Christmas approached, I felt none of the old dread. There was no frantic planning, no pressure to host. I made my own plans, simple and meaningful. I had a quiet dinner with Emily and her family again on Christmas Eve, feeling that familiar warmth of genuine belonging. On Christmas Day, I decided to spend it exactly how I wanted. I woke up late, made myself a delicious breakfast, listened to music I loved, and spent the afternoon volunteering at an animal shelter. Something I had always wanted to do but never had time for because I was always preparing for family obligations. In the evening, I Skyped with a friend who lived overseas, sharing a virtual toast. It was a quiet Christmas, yes, but it was full of peace, full of self-respect, full of genuine connection with people who saw and valued me. There was no performance, no expectation, no underlying tension, just me, existing, and choosing how I wanted to spend my day. I received a text from Mother on Christmas morning. "Merry Christmas. Hope you're having a nice day." There was no mention of Sarah, no invitation, no hint of regret. It was perfunctory, a formality. I replied with a simple, "Merry Christmas to you too." It wasn't cold, just detached. There was no longer an emotional hook for her words to latch onto. I realized then that I was free. Free from the need to please, free from the cycle of disappointment, free from chasing approval that would never fully come. The exclusion from that one Christmas dinner, the most painful betrayal, had inadvertently given me the greatest gift: the clarity to see my situation for what it was, and the courage to choose a different path. My relationship with my family is irrevocably changed. It's distant now, based on polite, superficial interactions rather than deep emotional connection. It's not the family I dreamed of, the one I worked so hard to preserve. There's a sadness in that, a mourning for what could have been, but there's also an incredible lightness. I no longer feel obligated to jump when they call. I say no without guilt. I prioritize my own well-being, my own finances, my own peace. The simmering resentment is gone. It's been replaced by a quiet confidence in my own worth. I learned that you can't make people value you if they don't. You can't force them to see your efforts or appreciate your sacrifices. Their inability to do so isn't a reflection of your worth, it's a reflection of their limitations. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to accept that and create space for healthier relationships to flourish. My home is still peaceful. My cup of tea is now cool enough to drink. The quiet street outside feels safe. The woman looking out the window isn't the same one who sat in her car crying in a grocery store parking lot. That woman was hurt, lost, and defined by her family's view of her. This woman is healing, found, and defined by her own strength and self-worth. The scar from that Christmas betrayal is still there, a reminder of the pain, but also of the turning point. It's a reminder that sometimes, being excluded from where you thought you belonged is exactly what you need to find where you truly thrive. And that place is, first and foremost, within yourself. So, that's my story. The year I wasn't invited to Christmas dinner because my sister wanted it just us. It was the worst Christmas of my life, and it was also, paradoxically, the best thing that ever happened to me. It was the catalyst for reclaiming my life, setting boundaries, and finally, truly finding my own peace. If you've ever felt overlooked, undervalued, or like you're living in the shadow of favoritism, I see you. Your feelings are valid. Your worth is inherent. You are not dramatic for wanting to be seen and appreciated. Finding your voice and setting boundaries is incredibly hard, especially with family. There will be pushback, there will be guilt tripping, there might even be silence. But on the other side of that difficulty is freedom. It's peace. It's the quiet satisfaction of finally putting yourself first. Thank you for letting me share this with you. If any part of my story resonated, please consider giving this video a like. It helps more people find it. And if you want to hear more stories like this, or follow my journey as I continue to build this new life, please subscribe. I'd also love to hear your thoughts or your own experiences in the comments below. Remember, you are not alone, you are strong, you are worthy, and you deserve to take up space.